What's up, everybody? What's up, you Washington football maniacs? Welcome back. It is finally here. The 53-man roster has been set from the Washington Commanders, and we're going to talk about their practice squad. So let's get right into it. So, like I said, the 53-man roster is here. The necessary cuts have been made, and look, the final obstacles to the regular season are being overcome. And what is it? Less than 2 weeks. It is here. Week 1 of the regular season against the Arizona Cardinals. So
Yes.
um let's dive right into it, Greg. But before we do, I see you're excited, man. How excited are you about the regular season, man? You ready to roll?
I just it's like a dream. I can't believe that the regular season is already here. I mean, we just oh, I'm going on vacation this weekend, so I'm kind of glad that there's no football this weekend. But I am just I'm excited. I can't wait for game one. We have gotten our 53-man roster set. We've gotten our practice squads set. Man, we are ready to rock and roll. New era for Washington Commanders. I'm just ready. I am excited for the first time, honestly. I mean, I'm always, excited about a new
Yeah.
season, but this year it's different. So, yes, man, I'm just, yeah, let's get to it.
Yes, sir. Full steam ahead. Let's get it, man. Week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals. So let's get into it. The 53-man roster. We're going to start with the offensive side. So looking at quarterback, Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett were the lone two quarterbacks. And we're going to talk about Fromm in a little bit, but Fromm was let go. But he ain't too far away. Like I said, we're going to talk about him in a little bit. But looking at the running back room, Brian Robinson Jr., Chris Rodriguez Jr., and Antonio Gibson. Looking at wide receiver, Jahan Dawson, De'Ami Brown, Curtis Samuel, course, Scary Terry. But Dax Milne was retained, Byron Pringle, and Mitchell Tinsley. Looking at tight end, Curtis Hodges, Logan Thomas, Cole Turner, and John Bates. And rounding down on the offensive side, the O-line, Ricky Stromberg and Nick Gates, who I assume are going to be the centers. Andrew Wiley, Charles Leno Jr., Trent Scott, Chris Paul, Sam Cosme, Sadiq Charles, and Cornelius Lucas. So looking at the offensive side, are there any surprises? Or did it kind of round out the way you thought it was going to?
Yeah, honestly, it did. In our last video, we were talking about, um, I think, the wide receivers, and we were kind of bagging on Dax Mill, and we really thought that he was the bubble guy. Um, I was not going to be surprised with the Commanders retaining him because he's been around for a couple of seasons, and I mean, he didn't do anything to necessarily lose his job um, in Washington. I didn't think that he was overly spectacular or, necessarily did anything to impress. I really thought that Allen was going to have a way of sneaking into the 53-man roster, but he didn't. We retained Dax, and so yeah, that part I wasn't too surprised with, and I also wasn't really surprised with the running back positions there. Of course, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, um, Chris Rodriguez, save for that one costly fumble that he had in preseason. Other than that, he played really well during the preseason, and it's always great to have some young, fresh legs there in the backfield. And I like it. I mean, we are very young in the backfield and very hungry in the backfield. So no surprises. And the way my brain works, I tend to go back and forth. Going back to the wide receivers, Tinsley. Um, I don't think I was necessarily surprised with him making the 53 man. He had a really impressive preseason. Um, Pringle, I definitely felt they were going to put him. He was going to make it. Coming from KC, he knows the offense. He knows Eric Bieniemy, so it's just going to help the rest of the wide receiving group that much more to for him to make the squad. But Tinsley, he I guess he's kind of going to be this year's um, Smith, not Smith. Lord, what a time for your mind to go blank. It'll come to me, but one of my favorites from a year ago that we let go to, I believe, Las Vegas. They'll come to me in a second. But anyway, um,
Humphreys.
not Humphreys. Hmm. I'm sure people in the comments will be like, "How could you forget about him?" But anyway, it'll come to me in a second. But anyway, Tinsley, I'm glad he made the team. Um, it could be a special teams guy, mostly, possibly. Um, and I'm sure that's a lot of the reason why that Dax made the team as well, for his special teams efforts. So, and of course, the offensive line, we need all the help we can get, all the depth we can get on the offensive line. So, no surprises there. Honestly, on the offense, nothing that surprises me, nothing that stands out at all as far as a surprise spot. It pretty much all played out exactly the way that I thought it was going to be. Um, you know, what I made a couple of changes here and there, maybe, but I think overall it's pretty much set, played out the way it was going to be.
Yeah, same here. I think the only two that I was kind of looking at was I I like going to the season with three quarterbacks. I thought that Fromm did enough to earn that third spot. So going to the regular season with two quarterbacks, I'm hoping they know what they're doing because, like you said, injuries happen, man. Injury happens. You don't want to have one quarterback who's available. So that's one thing I'm looking at. Jared Patterson, local product. I thought he looked good, but I understand the move. It's not one of those moves where like, oh man, I understand. There's a lot of talent in this running back room, so it's not a really big loss. But I was a big fan of Jared Patterson. So let's slide right into the defensive side. So at defensive end, they got Andrew Jones Jr., KJ Henry, Montez Sweat, no surprise, Casey Hill, James Smith Williams, Effie Obata, and Chase Young. At defensive tackle, John Ridgeway, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, and Fedarian Mathis, which again, no surprise. Looking at linebacker, Khalil Hudson, David Mayo, Jamin Davis, and Cody Barton. And looking at cornerback, Emmanuel Forbes Jr., Benjamin St. Juice, Kendall Fuller, Christian Holmes, and Danny Johnson. At safety. Sorry, man. It's been a long day. Jartavius Martin, Derek Forrest, Cameron Curl, Percy Butler, and Jeremy Reeves. And at special teams, obviously, Tressway, Joey Sly, and Cameron Cheeseman. So looking at the defensive side, um, is it kind of like the offensive side where it's like not really a big surprise? Or were there any kind of, a couple players that you thought that maybe should or shouldn't have been on the 53-man roster?
Was very surprised that William Bradley King didn't make the 53 man because he put in a lot of time last year in rotation when Chase Young was out. So I was very surprised that he didn't make the 53 man roster. Um, other than that, I wouldn't say that there was necessarily a lot of surprises again on the defensive side. Um, I mean, honestly, most of those guys are all second, third year, fourth year players and guys that you expect to play and has had a lot of playing time in rotation and things like that. So you expect most of those guys to honestly retain some spot on the 53 man roster. I think the only guy that I was surprised that didn't make the cut was William Bradley King. Um, but again, that shows you that the talent level on both sides of the ball is really starting to head upward. And so as you go along, the hope is that you start to become a little bit more surprised that you're hearing some guys who really put in some great time and some great play for us in the past gets cut. And you're like, wow, I can't believe they cut this guy. Well, it just goes to show you there is much better talent that is on this team that's rising to the top. Um, you talk about on the offensive side, Jarrett Patterson. I've got a lot of love for that guy as well because I think he came on the team as a um, probably during the mid-season. I don't even think he was. I think he was an undrafted player as well. I could be wrong on that, but
Yeah,
um,
he was.
yeah. So always like going, pulling for guys like that because they're always the proverbial underdogs, right? And so, I hated to see Jarrett Patterson get cut, but, just goes to show you the talent level that this team is starting to accumulate on both sides of football. So, yeah, again, not a lot of surprises, but just showing you the amount of talent that we're starting to get, and you're going to start seeing a little bit more of guys that normally you would be like, yeah, these guys will definitely be shoe-ins and could start, to, hey, these guys are getting cut because the talent level is rising that much further.
Oh, I totally agree, man. I mean, if you look at, really both sides, there's so much talent to where if you look at the Jared Pattersons, where, you know, you got to have a lot of talent when it's an easy move just to cut him. I mean, because I was a big fan of him. He's a local guy. He's from PG County, so he's actually from the area. But I mean, look at the defensive side. Jartavius Martin, man, he very easily could replace Derek Forrest next year. I mean, that's how talented he is.
Mhm.
Obviously, Cameron. I mean, that this defense is stacked. Safety alone. And if you look at the safety room, Martin, Jarek Forrest, Cameron Curl. I mean, Person Butler is kind of coming along, but he's got talent. Jeremy Reeves at corner. It's gonna be interesting who is gonna be number one. I mean, is Kendall Fuller? Excuse me. It's been a long day, y'all. So let's bear with me. Is Fuller really the number one guy? I mean, Emmanuel Forbes to me has shown enough that maybe he's up for consideration to be the number one corner. I mean, we know he's a ball hawk, but what was the biggest knock against him was, can he tackle? I mean, there's a couple times he picked dudes up and slammed them. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
he's got
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
He
he's got some
proved
strength,
that
man.
right away, right? I mean, that was the biggest thing was, this guy is like thin as a piece of paper. Can he tackle? And then it was like that first game. Oh yeah, he can tackle, and he showed us that a couple of times. So yeah, so he put that check mark in the box right away.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I'm big on Jortavius Martin because he's kind of a hybrid guy. He can play safety, he can play corner. But this defense is stacked. I'm looking at it right now. I think they're really the only, I guess, group that is questionable, maybe the linebacker group. Cody Barton. Do I think he can be kind of that field general as far as the guy to take charge of defense at linebacker? Yeah, I do think so. Jamin Davis, I think he might be a breakout candidate. Khaleke Hudson, lots of potential. David Mayo, he's not very consistent, but you see flashes here and there. But I mean, before we move on, man, I mean, I'm not very surprised. Like I said, I'm maybe call me old school. I'm used to there being three quarterbacks. I don't know if it's just easy with two quarterbacks, especially with one guy who's only got one career start. Now I get it. Look, the ceiling is very high for Sam Howell. I mean, his fan base is very excited for Sam Howell. And I think that he very well could prove to be a franchise quarterback, which is something we have not had in I don't know how long, since probably RG3. I mean, Alex Smith, yeah, but he was in the later stages of his career. So I mean, again, the 53 man's roster, this is gonna be a sleeper. There was an article in the next video. I'm going to actually read the article that talked about how the NFC East is so stacked that where if you look at any team in the NFC East, any of them could emerge to be that division winner. That's what they're saying. Now, obviously, Philly, look, let's be real. The roads go through Philadelphia. I mean, it's just what it is. They have a lot of talent, Philly. Nothing against them. Dallas, man, look, they just traded for another quarterback, man. So are they really feeling Dak Prescott like that? I'm just saying, look, there's questions at quarterback already. And
Yeah,
then New York, we'll see. New York, there's no shortage of talent, but can they stay healthy? Daniel Jones, he's a big killer of the Commanders, man. He always plays well against us, but like I always bring up Darren Waller, he's always an injury away. Saquon Barkley, with his contract situation and him always being an injury away. So there's a lot of questions, but I think that they're well coached. I'm a big fan of Dable, man. So we're going to move on real quick. We're going to get to the practice squad. And then I'm going to ask you the important question about the name, because I know everybody's inquisitive about the name, but management actually came forward and had a statement about the name of the franchise. But let's dig into the practice squad. And here's a list of the practice squads that was solidified an hour ago. This is from Yahoo Sports. Quarterback Jake Fromm. We were just talking about Jake Fromm, so he is on the practice squad. Running backs Derek Gore and Alex Arma Jr., who fullback / tight end. Wide receivers, Casimir Allen, that name again, and Bryson Tremaine. Guards, Mason Brooks and Nolan Laufenberg. And tackles, Alex Akimbulu and Jared Jones Smith. And here's your guy, defensive end, William Bradley King. Defensive tackle, Benning Pote. Linebacker, Dejon Harris. Cornerbacks, Nick Whiteside and Tariq Castro Fields. And safety, Terrell Burgess. So I know I'm going to ask the same question. Are there any surprises? And are there any names that you are really glad to see as far as the practice squad?
Glad to see Jake Fromm, number one. I'm glad to see him there. Glad to see Kaz Allen. Glad to see him there as well. Derek Gore, I think he could be an interesting running back at some point if we can develop him. William Bradley King, of course, because you never know with injuries and so forth and contracts and stuff like that. He can find himself back into the 53 man roster at some point, either this season or next season. So I'm glad, of course, I'm glad to see him back there. Um, just looking through that, I mean, those are the main guys that I'm seeing that I'm glad that are there. You know, yeah, I'm probably going to keep it as mostly the skilled guys that I'm seeing because honestly, that's what I pay attention to a whole lot during the preseason. The Kaz Allen, Jake Fromm. Now the thing is these guys getting poked from the practice squads, and that's always a fear of mine. You can't just always stash them on the practice squad and you think, okay, it's safe. They can certainly get picked from there. So hopefully we can keep some of those guys, especially Chaz Allen, Jake Fromm. I would like to at least keep those two guys, William Bradley King, Gore. Guys like that. Gore, I thought thought he played pretty well in the preseason as well. So some of those guys like that, and certainly again, guys that I don't see there that I'm missing. Jarrett Patterson, naturally. Hate to not see that name on the team. So yeah, I mean, I overall, I think that they did a really good job picking the 53 man roster. I think they did a pretty admirable job with picking the practice squad players as well. Um, Nothing honestly surprises me. I think it's all straightforward. There's no shock to me at all. I think the shocks will probably come next season. When after we've had a year of um, this ownership, and they start to really take hold of what they want to really change with this team as far as personnel, coaching personnel, player personnel, front office, and as you alluded to, name. And I haven't heard this yet, so I'll be very interested to hear what you're about ready to say. So that'll be interesting to see what type of surprises. I think we'll have some more surprises next season when it comes to the rosters, but this year, not a lot of shakeups. I think just continuing to build the foundation and continuing to build on to the talent that we already have. I think that is the smart thing to do if you're Ron Rivera. Um, so I think he's doing a good job in that respect. So again, I'm excited. I'm ready to go. Let's bring on Arizona tonight. Come on, let's do it. Let's do it. I'll stay up and watch it. Come on.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'm ready to roll. So, yeah, I mean, to kind of summarize the 53 man roster and practice squad, not a lot of surprises. Now, like I said, to me, the biggest thing is quarterback. I
Yep.
think eventually they will bring up Jake Fromm because that would be a loss if somebody picked up Jake Fromm. I think he proved enough in training camp and the preseason that he could play some ball. Now, I get his second and third stringers, but he proved last year with limited action that he can do the job. I mean,
Yeah.
he can do the job, and that's all you can ask for at this level. So, um, I'm gonna move on to the name. Now, ownership came out. Now there was a petition that had a lot of signatures that a lot of people were petitioning for the franchise to go back to the Washington Redskins. Ownership formally said, look, it's not in the plans, it's not happening. I think it's about a 5-year window that even if they wanted to, they would have to wait 5 years. So if you look at kind of the history of Washington sports, obviously the Washington Bullets, controversial name at one point because of the crime level of Washington D.C. one point. So it really didn't make sense to your professional basketball team to be called the Bullets. So they switched it to the Wizards, which wasn't very well received at the time. Which I don't know how you identify Magic with Washington D.C., but the Wizards now, is not even an issue. So if you look at it, there's a lot of there's been a lot of name changes. Teams moving, and a lot of if you look at I'm gonna use an example, the Los Angeles Lakers. You're wondering where's that name come from? Well, they moved from Minneapolis, which is the Great Lakes. So there's an origin in different names. But looking at the Washington Commanders name, my question for you, Greg, and really for the audience, and definitely comment below. Let me know what you guys think. With the Commanders name, is it one of those things where winning will kind of cure the ailment of holding on to the past, the Washington Redskins, or do you think it's just going to be one of those things where it was so popular, it was so deeply embedded in a lot of fans' hearts that it's always going to be an issue going forward? What do you think?
Well, I think definitely winning will cure a lot of that. Especially winning a Super Bowl or two, as the Commanders will definitely um, ease any of that, as far as we should be called the Redskins again and all that. And honestly, yeah, I mean, I wear a Redskins cap. I've been talking about getting a Redskins tattoo and all this stuff. My wife already has it all designed. I'm just, waiting to get the disposable funds to do it. But, despite all of that, here's the thing. Look, for me, I'm a Washington fan. I've been a fan of this franchise since 1981. Um, yeah, I'll probably will still call them Redskins every now and then because it's just, hey, I've been a fan for 40 plus years, right? Yes, I call them Commanders. I may even call them Washington football team every now and then because, it's the way it is, right? Um, I I think in the end, I'm part of the camp that, hey, if they went back to the Redskins, I would be, yeah, that's awesome because I loved that iconic Chief logo. I know the history behind it. So, I love that logo. If we could go back to that, that would be great. Um, I'm not married to the name. If they felt that the name needs to stay retired, I'm cool with that. If they want to come up with some other type of name that uh, does have something to do with Native American imagery, but they did it in a way to where it supported the Native American community and maybe brought up some sort of financial sponsorships to help those communities. I think that would be an excellent way of incorporating a name that would be tasteful, that would probably satisfy everybody's need to try to really stick with the history and the past and try to embrace that along with um, trying to move on and be whatever is considered kosher for today. Yeah, but overall, if we remain commanders, you know what, I will embrace that as well because in the end, here was the thing for me. The big test was going to be, can I be able to support this team that year that they became the Washington football team? No logo, no name, no nothing. They had the colors and that was it. And I still had those butterflies in my stomach on game day and watching them play and all that stuff. I was still just as invested in the team as I was when they were the Washington Redskins and had the logo and all that stuff. And even more so when they unveiled the name, even though I was kind of like, okay, this is kind of Walmartish, but whatever, W on the helmet. And um, I just felt like it was something kind of put together quickly, but I'm like, whatever, we're the Commanders now. And, I'm like, I don't love it, but guess what? I'll still support the team. I still had the same butterflies in my stomach when they got out in the field. I still supported the team. I still love the team. And so that made me realize that my fandom and the love for the team is deeper than what they're called. Is deeper than a uh, name or anything like that. So, um, mascots and all that aside, yeah, winning will cure all. And so, if this team consistently starts getting into the playoffs and making deep runs into the playoffs on a consistent basis, starts winning Super Bowls and that sort of thing, people are not going to care about Commanders versus Redskins versus you know Washington football team. They're going to be proud that the team is winning. Now, if the time comes and people are like, and all that happens, and people are like, yeah, I still would like for them to go back to Redskins, and the ownership is like, hey, I'm willing to go that route if you are. I'm not gonna be sad if they decide to go back to that. I would love it. Um, but overall, what's more important to me than anything else is putting a winning product on the field, a product that I can be proud of, and a product that wins championships. And I think that should be the first and foremost thing that the ownership thinks about. And I would hope that that's the first thing that they think about, and set aside what the actual team is called. They can worry about that a little bit later, and they can do both. That in the end, if the fans are still like, I don't care, I'm not feeling it either way, then ownership will. I think this ownership group will listen, but I think they made the right move in coming out and at least staking, putting the line in the sand and saying, hey, that is not what we're worried about right now. We are not going to make that change right now. That is not important to us. What's important to us is winning championships. And so that I totally support. And yeah, I'll always be a Redskins fan. I'm proud of that. And I'm not going to shame anybody else who still supports the old equipment and hats and things like that. And I'm not going to look down on people who wear all the new stuff as well, because it's all in the same family as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've just pulled it up right now, and it was actually it was during the interview on 106.7, the fan in Washington D.C., and it was Jason Wright that said, "quote unquote," it is not being considered. Period. I mean, he kept it kind of short, but I get it. Looking at the name, let me say this. It's a different world. This is not a political channel. This is a sports channel, but it's a different world. Just changes here, being made. I grew up a Washington Redskins fan. I'm from the Washington D.C. area. I'm from Virginia. Um, Very proud. So, I'm not personally a Native American. I don't know how that group truly feels. I try not to speak for other people, but me personally, I didn't have a problem with it. Um, but it is what it is. There's a lot of love for the name. I just most of my life that's what they were. A lot of pride in the name. Just there's a lot of pride and a lot of history, a lot of heritage in the name. So I get that because I'm one of those people that is always going to have a part of my heart. I was a big Redskins fan. It's who it's just part of our DNA in the DMV. But looking at Commanders, yes, at first I was a Red Wolves guy. I mean, we were going to change anything. I thought Red Wolves was definitely the option, but yeah, at first I thought a little generic, but I try to be an optimist, and I say this because I come from a military family. I personally 7 years active duty United States Army, served in Iraq. My father was in the Army, my grandfather was in the Navy. I mean, everybody has served. And we served almost every war since the Civil War. Going all the way to Vietnam to Iraq. So, to me, when I look at the fact that I don't know how other stadiums are, but there's always veterans being honored at FedEx. There's a very strong connection to the military community. If you look at the DC community, obviously the Pentagon, Fort McNair, Andrews Air Force, there's a lot of connection to the military community. So I think that two things. winning definitely cures all. Like I said, the Wizards, I'm not saying the Wizards are a powerhouse because the Wizards still haven't won a championship since the 70s, but they've had a success, and now people aren't really tripping about the name anymore. But let's try to use it as a way to show support to, in my opinion, the community that could be treated better. And like I said, I'm just gonna keep it there. I'm not gonna get political, but try to use this as a moment to come together. Commanders, generic, yes, but it does honor the military community. And that's kind of where I'm at. That's where my pride is for the name, is that let's try to use it as a way to show pride for the military community. Because like I said, this franchise, I hate's a very strong word, but I they didn't have a lot of love for Dan Snyder. But the one thing that I did see through the ages, through ownership, was there's always been a strong connection to the military community. And I think that's kind of where you need to take it and say, look, if this is going to be the name, cool. Let's show homage. Let's really use that as, you know what I'm saying? So I guess that's the way for me to look at it, as a positive way forward, a way to progress, because, Redskins ain't coming back. As much as I want to hold on to that part of my, you know what I mean? It's gone, man. And we got to accept it for what it is and try to build something going forward. And that's kind of where I'm at, man. I hate to be on a soapbox, but like I said, I'm a military guy, man, and that's just where, really the pride comes from me as far as the name, man, paying homage to the military community that does serve in the Washington, D.C. area and beyond, man. So, yeah, that's definitely a question I want everybody to answer. Let us know what you guys think. Is this something that's always going to be a fight, or do you think winning ways are going to change how people feel about the name? Definitely let us know. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, because look, the regular season's coming up, man, and we got some guests coming up. Game days, home games, we're going to do vlogs, so we're going to do a lot of footage from the games, recaps from the games, previews. We're going to do a lot of good content this regular season and beyond, so definitely tune in. So it is very important to hit that notification button. Wherever you get your podcast, 5-star review is much appreciated, man, because we're going to give you 5-star effort, baby. So
Yes.
definitely 5-star review. So before we roll, you got anything you want to cover real quick, Ray?
Just want to say, guys, don't dwell too much on the 53-man roster or the practice squad if you feel like I hated, the lineup or anything like that, because guess what? It is not going to look exactly the same halfway through the season or toward the end of the season. Things are going to look completely different. You're going to have people getting cut. You're going to have people getting injured. You're going to have people coming off of other squads and things like that. So it almost never looks exactly the same as it does when it starts. So just keep that in mind. I think they did a good job of starting off with the starting point, but it'll be interesting to see, Brandon, how much different this 53-man roster is going to look by mid-season. And maybe we'll do a video toward mid-season and do a recap of, hey, looking back, this is what the 53-man roster looked before the first of the season, and this is what it looks like now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I agree 100%. There's actually a comment from Jake Fromm. He says, they asked him, he said, what did you think about the move made by the club? And he says, in one word answer, hideous. So let's go leave it there. So leave it
Hey,
there.
I love that man. He's going to get on that 53-man roster somehow.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So
I
definitely.
love the videos.
Oh man, funny. I mean, that is such an iconic commercial, man. I love it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and roll. Definitely appreciate everybody tuning in. We, like I said, before the regular season starts, we're gonna do a preview with a special guest. I'm not gonna say who it is now, but we're gonna do some content leading up. And like I said, it's gonna be a fun season for everybody. But definitely let us know what you guys think. So, hail to the Commanders and peace. Everybody have a good evening and take care. God bless.
See you, everybody.